Good morning, everyone. I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration, which is a boutique immigration firm helping people all over the United States as well as internationally. And we are back for another Monday morning edition of Beyond the Soundbite, where we talk about all things U.S. immigration. So, the first thing I want to talk about, because all know that I like to dive right on in. The first thing I want to talk about is beginning June 12th of this year. So, beginning June 12th of this year, if you have to go into the consulate overseas and you're a US citizen, you can have your attorney or someone of your choice go in with you and help you navigate that system. Think of it as someone to go in and maybe help you navigate the legal piece of that puzzle, or just someone to just stand by your side and really just help you out and be a little bit of a hand holder, and someone that you can lean on. Because I will tell you, if you're a US citizen and you're overseas, you're typically not going into a consulate because everything is rosy, okay? So, that said, starting June 12th, you can now have someone accompany you into our consulates if you are applying for a US passport, if you are requesting notification of a birth overseas, if you are requesting a certificate of loss of nationality from the United States and you're overseas and you are doing that. And there are some US citizen services that you can also have someone accompany you into the consulates overseas. Now, what this new rule does not do, it does not allow lawyers and other professionals, other individuals, to accompany you if you are a non-US citizen and you are going into the consulate for your, let's say, for your immigrant visa or for your green card interview. You still may not, as just sort of the general rule, bring an attorney or someone with you. That is very much a case by case, consulate by consulate decision. So, this new policy starting June 12th does not apply to individuals going into US consulates overseas for their immigrant visa or green card interview. So, just keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about are it's still cap season, y'all. And I know, I know that y'all got a little bit of a break from me talking about cap season, but I'm back. So the Immigration Service, USCIS, releases data every year right after they run the cap, right after they run the lottery for us. And so this year is no different. So I wanted to let you guys know what a few of those numbers look like, and kind of what the Immigration Service thinks that they mean. So they announced that they selected just over 100,000 beneficiaries this year for the cap. So the number is 1,114 and 17 beneficiaries. And because it was beneficiary centric, they chose the beneficiary. So they didn't choose the employer beneficiary pair like they do like they have done in past years. But what this means is that roughly 120,000 selected registrations were selected. So obviously some of those were for the same beneficiary, just for a different sponsoring company. And so because those numbers were so tightly packed, and because those numbers are fewer than last year, the Immigration Service believes that they have put a dent in people trying to game the system with this new beneficiary-centric process. I suspect internally the Immigration Service is still looking at this and still looking at the data that they are compiling, as and I think they will continue to do so as as the H-1B applications are processed. So we'll see. We'll see what they come out with. We'll see what they say moving forward. But I wanted to give those numbers to you. People always ask me, well, how many applications were filed? What are my chances of getting selected? And so last year, that was a pretty bleak conversation. So potentially this upcoming year, for a new CAP season. That's right, I'm already talking about the next CAP season, but hopefully for the next CAP season, that conversation will be able to give a little bit more clarity than we were able to give for this current CAP season. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the N-400 form. That is for individuals that are applying for U.S. citizenship. So slowly, the Immigration Service is making changes to the forms. The N-400 is no different, but they have now added another gender identity on the N-400. It is marked as X. So if that better defines who you are, that option is now available on the naturalization form, which is the N-400 form. So I suspect we will see this change, this ability to choose a third gender on more forms moving forward. But for now, it is on the naturalization form. Next up is sometimes we have issues with getting cases processed through USCIS, whether it be a timing issue, whether it be a substantive issue in the file. And one resource that we have that we can use is the USCIS Ombudsman's Office. They will, to the extent that they can, have a conversation and with USCIS and look into what's happening with a case file. To be clear, their role is not to tell USCIS how to process cases. Their role is not to tell USCIS to take a case out of the current processing time. Their role is really to act as an intermediary and help us glean some information about a case. And so sometimes they're asking questions alerts USCIS to the fact that maybe a case needs a little bit more of their undivided attention, shall we say. So, excuse me. So the Ombudsman's Office is making a few changes in terms of how we reach out to them. So hopefully these changes will streamline our ability to work with them. We'll see what happens. So we'll see what happens with that, but I wanted to let y'all know that. So if we see something that's maybe a little bit slower in terms of the Ombudsman's Office ability to help us in a short term, I think it could be because we are looking at a change in how we reach out to them. Sometimes we gotta slow down before we can speed up. And the last thing I wanted to talk to y'all about this morning is a question that I have been getting pretty often, is the difference between a visa and the I-94 card. So the visa is what is put in your passport at a U.S. consulate overseas. Usually takes up one entire page of your passport, and the visa essentially allows someone to get on a plane, walk through the airport, and ask for permission to enter the U.S. That visa tells the officer that you want to come into the U.S. It tells the officer what status you think you are eligible for. It tells the officer that perhaps there was an application filed and approved already, and that you should be entering the U.S. in that particular status. And then based upon the status, the officer will ask you certain questions. Great. If the officer allows you to come into the U.S., they will then issue an I-94 card. They issue that I-94 card electronically, but they also put a stamp in your passport. That stamp in your passport says what day you entered the airport that you entered through, and the date by which you must leave. So that same information is also in your I-94 card, but your I-94 card again is issued electronically, so it's no longer a piece of paper or a little white card that they hand you back in the airport. So the difference is that the visa that's in your passport allows you to get on a plane. The I-94 card is what allows you to stay in the United States and tells you how long you can stay in the United States. I get several calls and emails, people reaching out saying, oh, well, I have I have a 10-year visa, so I'm okay to stay in the United States for another 10, for another, let's say 9 years. And I'm trying to figure out, how I can, how I can get a green card, or, how I can get citizenship, whatever their question is. And so I always have to explain to them that just because your visa is valid for 10 years, that doesn't mean that you get to stay in the US for 10 years. It just means that for the next 10 years, you can hop on a plane, enter the airport, and ask to be admitted to the US. It is, in fact, the I-94 card that determines what your status is when you are in the US. So I wanted to go over that today because I've had some folks ask me that question very, very recently. They're very, very confused. So I'm glad that I was able to explain that to them. But I thought, well, certainly if they were a little confused, then some of you might be confused. And let's clear up that confusion about status, because that is important to know what determines your status and then how long you're allowed to stay in the United States. So again, y'all, it has been a wonderful Monday morning. I love chatting with you. I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. We're a boutique immigration law firm. We help clients all over the United States and internationally. And if you need some assistance with your immigration case, if you are looking to hire someone that's not a U.S. citizen, you're not quite sure where to start, feel free to reach out to our office and we will get you on that right path. Or if you are a U.S. citizen and you want to get a green card for your fiance, your spouse, your dependent child, or your parent, we can also help you with that. So again, have a wonderful, wonderful Monday morning and a great rest of your week, and we will see you next Monday.